Too many people believe that world travel is an inaccessible luxury for the rich. This is 100% wrong. It's not difficult, expensive, or dangerous to travel in most of the world. Over the last 3 decades, I've been to around 100 nations. With all that time on the road, I've learned a few lessons. In a previous video, I shared how I find affordable airfares. Now I'm going to share the simple way I figure out how much a destination will cost once I get there. Spoiler alert, it involves McDonald's hamburgers. So my guideline to maximize my budget while traveling is I try to go to places that are affordable, which means they cost less than where I live. Generally speaking, if a place does not have the same level of wealth as where you live, then you should expect lower prices there. When you compare the costs of things that local people use, like groceries, public transport, and restaurants, most, but not all prices in poorer nations are inevitably less than they are in richer nations. However, average wealth level is not the only point to consider when looking to where you can travel affordably. Another consideration is exchange rates. In my experience, if your home currency, in my case the US dollar, is relatively strong, or the nation you're visiting has recently had its currency weaken, this can dramatically change your costs to travel there. So okay, I'm about to get a little wonkish and take a quick time out for an economics lesson. I promise it won't take more than 1 minute though. So many things influence exchange rates and can cause a nation's currency to strengthen or weaken relative to other nations' currencies. Governmental policies, trade, interest rates, but this is a travel video, so I'm not going to go too far into that. Let's just say that governmental policies and geopolitical events cause exchange rates to fluctuate, and sometimes they do so dramatically. But just because a nation has a low valued or depreciated currency doesn't mean it's an economic wasteland. Exchange rates are not always an accurate reflection of living standards. Keep in mind that many goods and services are not traded between nations, land, housing, and to a great extent labor, and are therefore not as influenced by exchange rates. But since labor is generally the biggest expense in producing almost everything, places with lower wage rates are typically cheaper to travel to. If local people don't earn much money, they can't afford to pay high prices for everyday goods and services. So okay, other than doing a detailed economic analysis, how can you easily estimate what your real costs will be on the ground at your destination and use that information in planning your travels? Well, The Economist magazine has developed a lighthearted economic tool called the Big Mac Index, which measures a concept called purchasing power parity. Don't worry about that. Even if you don't understand what that is, this tool is still very useful for both carnivores and vegetarians in that it gives a simplified overview of the cost of everyday items in a nation. A McDonald's Big Mac is the same size and recipe everywhere it's served, except India, where it's called the Maharaja Mac and it's made from chicken instead of beef. So since it's the same worldwide, why doesn't it cost the same everywhere? Because costs for ingredients, transport, labor, land, taxes, advertising, and a whole host of other things vary a lot between nations. So what the Big Mac Index does is it takes the average price of a sandwich in local currency. It then converts that price to US dollars using current exchange rates. So once you express the average cost of Big Macs sold everywhere in their US dollar price, you'll quickly see that some places cost a lot more than others. A Big Mac in Switzerland will cost you over 3 times what the exact same sandwich costs in Egypt or Indonesia. And from my personal experience, I can certainly tell you a trip to Switzerland will easily cost 3 times what the same type of trip will cost in Egypt or Indonesia. A side note, McDonald's restaurants are not as prevalent in Africa, but KFC is. So there's also a KFC Index for many African nations using buckets of KFC chicken instead of Big Macs. Keep in mind as well, even though the Big Mac Index is based around the US dollar, you can easily do the math using current exchange rates to see what that implies for you as a person who uses currency other than the US dollar. So how is the price of Big Macs relevant to the cost of your travels, even if you have no plans or desire to eat at a McDonald's? Well, remember, McDonald's food is not a luxury good eaten only by the wealthy. McDonald's locates its restaurants in places where there's a large population of middle-class consumers that can regularly afford to dine there. It's not the cheapest meal, but it's also far from the most expensive. So although it's not perfect, the cost of a Big Mac at the place you're going is an easy and reasonable gauge for the price of many other goods and services that normal people and travelers buy during the course of an average day, like bus tickets, hotel rooms, meals, a beer, etc. So if you're looking to make your travel budget go further, look beyond just the price of the airline ticket to get to your destination. Your costs on the ground should also be a major consideration. Although the Big Mac Index is a far from scientific tool to evaluate exchange rate policy, I find it super useful in estimating the general costs once I'm on the ground at my destination. If you want to dive a little deeper into this, check out the links in the description. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this useful, a like and subscribe is sincerely appreciated. Please give me your questions, comments, and suggestions, and check out my other content on affordable world travel.